drive you insane, tooth pain.
Yes, I totally agree. My father has some tooth pain. It's a whole ball game of.
Well, I know a guy whose dad, so this is someone from a different generation, obviously, who actually asked and set up, and that this is a thing that apparently was legal at the time. I don't know if it is anymore, but he had every tooth pulled when he was in his 20s, and literally his reasoning was, "I will never have tooth pain ever again." And he got a full set of two, strong and decent looking dentures, and he said he never regretted it, and he's like in his 70s now.
I've heard my uncle actually does that. He did that when he was I think 40.
I'm just like, man, I wonder if I would regret that. I wonder if I would be. Yeah, getting teeth pulled sucks, but I mean, once you get that done, no more tooth pain ever again.
Well, now you're a dentin cyborg of sorts, so that would be awesome. Anyway, thanks for coming, everyone. This is Mauler, in case no one is aware of who he is and his voice. My gentleman friend from the UK, and I'm in Canada, so there's a bit of a time difference, but we can still talk with the magical power of YouTube technology. And
Mauler has grandpa teeth. No.
Apparently, there's different dentistry in the North Americas as well as the Europeans. So,
I mean, genuinely, I don't have good information. For all I know, I just have an awful dentist, or I'm just stupid and I don't realize how good the dentist is. That's another stereotype. You just sort of hate your dentist irrationally when they're trying to help you, sort of thing.
It's interesting because, again, I just randomly, I went to the dentist yesterday and we're talking about this, and it's like, gee, I have all this information to share in case you're curious how great technology is for dentistry in Canada. And
I'm of the position, I just wish we were at the point where it's just lasers and it gets done in seconds. And then, I mean, I have a bit of like thing with biology, but like I kind of just hate the way teeth work, as if humans were made by a guy, like in a little computing software, like think of Spore. I'm like, why the hell did you give us these things? Like, they're not even that good. Like, can we get better ones?
Well, the idea of pulling all your teeth and then replacing them with implants or dentures, people have done, as I said, my uncle, and it's one of the best decisions he ever made, because all you do is that one operation and you're good for life. And if you get punched in the jaw or anything, it's like, no problem. I can fix this. I'm a cyborg now.
I've got a friend who wants to be fully converted to like a cyborg. He genuinely like doesn't see a downside. And I was like, sorry, man, you were born at the wrong time. You could just go on ice for a few hundred years, maybe.
Oh boy. Well, it's a fun topic. I'm not going to get into it too much anymore because I don't think that's why people are here to hear us talk about our dentin teeth skills and experiences. But just to recap, we were having a live stream, I think about 4 or 5 months ago, about the same topic, which is, of course, Solo. And this was about Mauler's. I think you released that Solo release or review. I don't know. It must have been like a week or two after.
Oh yeah,
it came out. You were so I gotta get this out, and you did that. And I was just like,
the other videos where I just don't sleep until I get it done.
Yeah, and I'm actually doing my own work on my next video, and I'm just slowly getting it done. But you were just rocketing that thing out. I was like, wow, that came out rather quickly. So you must have had a huge response emotionally, at least to that, because I work on rage. I'm sure you do too at some points. But whenever
wait, what do you mean by that? I think I know what you mean by that.
You get so enraged by something, either the actual work itself or the fan response, and you argue with someone, and you're like, oh my God, this is the most disgusting argument or the worst thing I've ever experienced. Yeah. I have to go write an essay and get it out of my system, and then I have to record myself and then do video editing and whatever. So that's how I sort of saw that. Like, wow, this guy's really serious. So as soon as I saw, I don't remember half of it, but as soon as I saw, I was like, okay, I got to watch this movie. And finally I got around to it just last night. And
took your time with that one, eh?
Well, a lot of people
I don't blame you.
They said, don't bother. It's like, don't watch it. It's really bad.
Why? It's really ineffectual is another word you could probably use for it. It's just like, meh.
You know what? I was watching the first 20 minutes. I'm like, I kind of like this. It was like, this is okay. I mean, there were some flaws with it already, but this is fine. Like, this is an action popcorn popping.
Well, I mean, I don't know how people feel about this, but like, I'm happy to admit I think it's a lot better than The Last Jedi.
Okay, but that's not saying. I mean,
it's not saying much.
Yeah, I mean, how do you gauge those two? It's in the same universe, sure, but
That's a good point. Like it's difficult because they are very different movies. I guess how can you compare The Last Jedi to any movie ultimately, because it's so. I mean, I've said to my friends before that The Last Jedi is probably going to be the worst Star Wars film because you can't deal that damage again. It's done now. Like you can't ruin Luke again. That would just be, it would be a joke at that point. So it's just like, yeah, whatever.
well, that just means they can make a brand new hero after Rey and ruin that even worse. It's
Yeah, but like we've lost Leia, we've lost Han, we've lost Luke. It's like, what else are they going to do now? The Millennium Falcon's been, well, I was going to say ruined. I don't know how you felt about it from Solo.
well, the thing is with Solo, what I really liked, and I don't know how big the reshoots were. There must have been a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But the one thing I did notice was the pacing of the story. Even though it was like a 2-hour movie or whatever, it was quick. Like it felt like, okay, if I'm going to take my kids to a movie theater,
You can see where the money went. It's like there's
yeah.
so much stuff that's getting done in this film. So
And
many places we go to.
I wouldn't say the edits and cuts were good, but they were meshed or clean. They were a clean cut. So there was whatever the reshoots did. It all connected very quickly. And now whether or not that was done properly is another story, but it was enough to keep me interested in saying, okay, what's going to happen next? Because I don't know where they're going to go with that.
Mm-hmm.
And then it gets near the end, and it's like halfway through, my attention just goes, uh-oh. And then it's like going on a trip, and your car is hitting all these gravel blocks in the road, and it's just little dings in your windshield. And by the end of the ride, your windshield is completely shattered. So it sort of built up over time, and I felt that it just kept pushing itself too long. And
I mean, my friend's reaction when he came out of this one was just, well, it was all right. I was like, man, I remember when Star Wars movies weren't even able to give that reaction. Like that would just be, it'd have to be more than that.
well,
Even the prequels, I'm not even kidding with that.
okay, well, the prequels were for fun, sort of, again, also popcorn-ish fun things, but they try to tell a story that was happening later. The same idea with Solo, and that's fine. It's just how you do it and why you do it. Like this is a movie. I'm really asking myself, why was this done?
Yeah, that's a huge question that follows this movie around. What was
Like
the point of this?
I would love to have seen instead an Obi-Wan movie, because I can understand why they'd want to do that, because that makes sense with the prequels, that makes sense with the character. You want to know more about this old wise fellow and how he became, or how he joined the Jedi Council or whatever, like how that all happened. That sounds interesting. With Han, it's just a guy. And there's
Do you find it odd, by the way, that he essentially goes through? Well, I don't even know if we can really call it an arc, but he's everyone keeps telling him he's not a good guy, as if to tell us, it's like, see, this is how it leads him to episode 4, where he's not really a good guy. But it's like, but he spends the whole film being a good guy. He's like a hero in every. He doesn't do anything evil.
yeah, he always believes in his girlfriend. He always believes that I have a good
Defending
feeling.
and helping people. He gets himself into a lot of crap just to help both Beckett and his girlfriend. They're the people who he's actually doing all these things for. He's not himself.
I don't know what himself exactly is, because when you talk about character development or a change, you have to see one character and then he changes into another, and there's nothing like that in the story. It's just him being optimistic, and I'm gonna be with my girlfriend in 3 years or whatever, and then he meets up with some marauders that aren't marauders, and then he decides to help them, and you're like, okay, that's it. Like that's all. There's nothing else that
I mean,
changes.
because even the shooting first thing, it's like, yeah, well, Beckett was going to kill him, so I mean, seems normal to me. Like,
Yeah, no, that was fine. Like I actually liked that scene, because
yeah,
as much as
I found it fine. Like I kind of, it felt right, I guess.
I was happy that that part of the movie was lit. Like the first half was so dark. I was like, what is the point of all this
Yeah.
darkness? And then I thought it was a symbolism or some sort of technique that show that he's in the ground, and he's in the dirt and the dark, and everything's bad. And the breaking of the light in that bizarre queen worm thing was to symbolize that he's
Well,
getting out of there.
do you
It's like,
remember like the amazing prosthetics they've got throughout that whole scene for all these different creatures, and then we don't see them after like 2 minutes? So it's just like, wow, that's a lot of money that we'll never see again.
it was, well, the set design was pretty big. I mean, there was a lot
And
of CGI
And
and
it's
other
so dark
things.
we can't even appreciate a lot of it. It's like you have to squint and go, oh, wow, that's okay.
Yeah, like the whole war scene that when he was after the 3 year time skip, it's like, oh, he's at war. I can't see a god. And then there's this explosion and everyone dies. Like, oh, who's that guy? And all the characters, like there was a pilot. I'm a pilot. It's like, well, I'm the best pilot. And then he gets saved by Chewbacca, and they're screaming to get into the ship. And then there's another pilot. I'm like, who the hell is this pilot? And then all these little things start happening. I'm like, why is this going on?
Oh yeah, I don't know if you are sort of on this sort of side of it, but a lot of people are. I certainly am. The new characters, so like the monkey dude, the girl from Tandy Newton's her name, the actress.
Okay.
They were interesting to me. I was like, these are new people. They seem to actually have them being a team of we need to make money so we can just survive in this universe, and we're going to do it in a few unethical ways. But then they wiped out, and you're like, oh well, never
I
mind.
actually, well, okay, they did that one girl. I don't know what the heck she was doing. Okay, she sets the bombs on the bridge, and then she just starts shooting droids. I'm like, why did you do
Well,
that?
apparently, so the droids would have shot at them had she not blown them up herself, I suppose.
How, why? Yeah, but wouldn't they have shot the Marauders? Because they were all.
Them too, I suppose. I don't know. Like that scene is a bit weird because, like, obviously she's only there apparently to blow up the bridge so they can slot it off the track.
Yeah, but why did she start shooting the droids while she was on the bridge? Why didn't she get off the bridge and then say,
Oh,
"Oh, well,
right, because she like puts herself in a situation where she can only die, basically.
yeah"? It was like, what's the
There was
strategy
only.
here?
Do you remember there was only two shooting her though? And I remember getting really annoyed that she wasn't just fucking trying to kill them. I was just like, there's two. You know, if you nail one shot, you'll be able to hide from the other. I don't know, just bit nitpicky. I just like I would have preferred the scene set up in a way that meant that she just had to die instead of she dies because she's making some interesting decisions.
If the droid shot her first, then it'd be like, okay, she's forced to fight back. Great. But she literally just she finished planting the bombs and she stands around, looks outside. Oh, there's a droid. I'll shoot it. And you're like, why would you drive attention to yourself? Like, what was the point of that? And then the monkey guy dies. And you're like, okay, Han
Which
takes
I
over.
found really odd. If you remember, there's like a trooper, or well, a marauder breaks in, and the monkey guy has two pistols, and he puts them up, and he goes boo 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 boo, and like he doesn't hit the guy once, and I was like, oh wow, and then he gets shot, and I was like, you'd think, yeah, okay,
And he gets shot on the shoulder too. And it's like, is this a damaging wound? I guess they treated it like it was. So I'm like, okay,
he just
fine.
bleeds out, I guess, yeah.
I don't know. It
Well,
was
even though you wouldn't bleed out from a blast, like so cauterized, isn't it?
exactly. It's just all heat. And you're like, boom. You know, okay. Are you passing
Yeah,
out? Are
just
you shocked? Like, what's the thing? And he didn't actually help himself. He didn't actually treat himself. Like, he didn't think get a med kit while Han pilots the thing. I'll go now save my own life while you finish the job. He just sits there like, oh, okay,
well,
great.
yeah, that's and I don't know. I found the monkey guy kind of fun. He was voiced by John Favreau as well. I don't know if you know
Really?
that. Yeah.
I thought there was a lot of Steve Blum. I looked at the credits. I could not see Steve Blum throughout the credits though, and I heard his voice like through various masked guards in the first half.
Hmm.
It sounds just like Steve Blum. It's like, nope. Like, okay, I'm totally off. My ears are shot. I have no idea who I'm listening to. But the thing I didn't like was the garbled Star Wars language of everyone. So there was the Wookiee language, which for some reason Chewbacca can understand English. So what's the point of Han speaking Wookiee if he's just going to talk to him in English later, instantly after he?
Yeah, so that's actually something I said in my video. I think I was like, this is kind of a weird moment to break down because the public audience, and this is not an insult, this is genuinely like the difference between people who are trying to figure this shit out versus people who are just watching a movie. It's kind of funny. It's like he talks in English, 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 then he tries Wookiee, and it works. You're like, huh, that makes sense. But
And
no, it doesn't
suddenly
make
he's right.
sense. It
And
doesn't make
suddenly,
sense at all.
but he's suddenly friendly now. It's like, well, he didn't change his tone. He's just trying to be friendly because he's in
Yeah,
a cell.
that's what people are saying. It's like, well, the fact that Han spoke Wookiee meant that Chewie didn't want to hurt him anymore, and it's like, what?
Why?
He's and that's another thing, dude. Like, what is Chewbacca's history? How long has he been captured, forced to eat inhumans? Like,
And he's
that's got to.
190 years old at that point. And you're like,
It's like how much? What does that do to a person? So the last time we saw him was in Revenge of the Sith, if you remember. He's just on Kashyyyk.
okay.
So apparently he got captured, and then he was enslaved. Like, was that during that? Because that would be, we're talking like probably 10 years or something. Like, has he just been fed humans that whole time? Like, that's got to do stuff, man.
I eat people. It's no big deal.
Like, I wonder if he ever told the crew of the Millennium Falcon about that. Like, this is why he's so aggressive to people. He's like, I am tempted to eat you.
Well, there is a scene where he tears off the guy's arms, and Han makes a joke about, oh, that's outfit was my perfect size. I guess I can't dress up as that guy anymore. Like, okay. I guess you should have told him about that before
Did
you
you notice this film more than any other Star Wars film? It's just like a scattershot of references, like vague references. I say vague, like I know a lot of them, but a lot of public will not.
I saw a few, and I still did not understand the dice. I don't know why that was ever a thing, or why that was.
Yeah, a lot of people like the dice, and I was like, I find it so insulting that we've now got the dice explained that they represent basically his girlfriend, the Kira. Like they're very important to him. He gave them to her and got them back from her. They're like a big connection in this film to her. He gave them to Leia, like Luke did. Like that's what are you doing, man?
Okay, so did she give them to him first? I can't remember.
No, he just always had them, but then he gave them to her and said, like, you'll give them back to me when we finally meet back again. But then all he does is put them back on the Millennium Falcon or whatever. And so it's like, that's their storyline. That's the dice storyline. And if you remember, there's a lot of shots in this film. There's one, I think, in the when they're caught in the beginning in that area where she's got the dice and like they're banging on the door like no because they get separated, and there's a shot where it shows the dice like attached to a hand or wrapped around her arm or something, as if to be like the dice and her are very much a thing. And it's like, oh, okay, but then Luke gives Leia the dice. It to me, I'm just like, was this some miscommunication? Was it like when you made The Last Jedi that Solo was supposed to explain the dice, but you guys weren't told exactly what to do with the dice, and so you just made it up that it's a part of an old girlfriend, which you didn't somehow realize that kind of ruins Luke giving it to Leia? Like, well, that makes...
Let's also remember that those dice aren't real dice, but I guess that could have been the signal to Leia saying, I'm not really here, and she figures out...
Oh, right, yeah, but I just...
Maybe?
The way I interpret it is like, hey, have these things. And Leia's like, what the fuck are these? It's like, oh, they're something Han gave to an old girlfriend. It's like, what? Thanks, dude.
There were a few things I did not wrap my head around, like was Han always good at gambling? Did he lie about...
I mean, there's comments about him being a Gary Stu in this film. What do you think about that?
I think it had to do more with his idea that he's so confident, and he knows what he's good at. So he's good at piloting, he's good at gambling, and how the hell he didn't get chopped up by that gang leader, I have no idea. So everything was sort of just...
Do you remember what happens to him when he fights, battles or whatever's Chewie as well? Like, the man would have been broken in half several times in that scene.
He gets thrown around, and then Chewie's sort of like they're running away together, and Chewie's just dragging him along.
Yeah,
like, what is going on here?
And all the soldiers have just disappeared at that point. Like the whole camp is just empty.
There's no one there. There's two guys. Like, they're gone, and there's like no one cares. The whole thing's
like that's lucky. Because the two guys get knocked out, sure, fine. But I mean, there was like a whole army there. It was like, oh, they're all gone. And how it always bothered me that Han didn't have any problem with what Beckett did. He's just like, we just need to catch up with the ships. We can join them. It's like, don't you hate him now? He nearly killed you. Okay.
Oh, and it was all because of that monkey pilot. It's like, hey,
I know
you've got a Wookiee. Ever slept next to a Wookiee? It's like, what?
He has loads of references like that. You remember when he's like, I want to set up a cantina in a planet that's pretty hot but not too hot, and it's like, film, you can try a little bit harder than that. You don't need to... Well, they just randomly mentioned Minox, and I had to like stretch my Star Wars brain. I was like, Minox? That's episode 5, isn't it? It's like, why?
It was just bizarre how it was so contrived how they got on the ship. Like they escaped the prison and they're just standing there, please help us. And they're waving them down. It's like, no, we're going to leave. And the pilot's like, let's get him. Like,
do you remember when Beckett is first introduced and he's just flipping his guns for no reason?
Oh, in the war, yeah.
He shoots. It's not like it's reloading. It's like style.
Yeah.
It's just like, what are you doing? And I know that, again, people will be like, why are you picking on that? And I'm like, it's so distracting to me as a if you're in a desperate situation where you're nearly dying and you're just like, yeah, I'm cool. It's like,
Yeah, there's no
stop.
practical. If he was like reloading or something, then it'd be like,
Yeah.
oh, that's cool. He's really good with guns because he knows how to fight. But it's like he's just playing around. So it's like he's confident enough that he's not going to get shot in a war zone. It's like, dude, maybe if you're in a cantina setting or in a street, like where you sort of do your jobs, he's like in the middle of a war.
Just
Like,
like the time he takes to flip, it's like you could have shot another blast there, but okay. You do you.
it was strange. The 3 year, I hate time skips. The 3 year thing was just stupid. There
Well, this
was
is the thing. I feel like if you're making this film, then you get to have a sort of going back to Han Solo's sort of character. I'd say you get to have one free, strong ability, and then maybe show us him developing another one or something. Try and give us something to grasp onto. But it's like everything that he's good at, he just sort of has. The piloting thing, people are like, yeah, he got to be a good pilot in those 3 years, and I'm like, oh,
no.
it's like first of all, they didn't show any of it, but secondly, there's a deleted scene. I don't know if you've seen it. It's going around. Apparently, he was kicked out of Flight Academy, and it's because he doesn't pay attention to rules. But like to me, I'm just like, so he was he a good pilot before he even did that, or
The only explanation that we got was that his dad makes those ships and he grew up around them. So it's like, okay. So he knows he knows how to fly that specific kind of freighter, but that
yeah?
doesn't mean he actually flew the damn thing and knows how to make it go well.
And
Uh,
why does that make him a good pilot in general? Like
yeah,
in everything.
yeah.
It's
So
strange. And then, as you said, you got the gambling, which for some reason he's better than Lando at, even though Lando's got a reputation for like winning a lot.
I sort of like, okay, maybe he was lying through his teeth, but they didn't explain that because you grew up in the slums or whatever, you'd be good at that. They didn't show that part of him.
Yeah, and I think that's easy. You just have it be that he gambles in the opening of the film to get
Yeah,
something.
exactly. And he's really good. And everyone, oh, don't gamble with him. He's gonna beat
Yeah.
you. That'd be fine. It's a 2 second thing. There's so many things. And then Londo just goes along because what's her name is there for 25% of the cut. He doesn't talk to Woody about negotiation. Woody just says 25. Then he says 25 again. And you're like, okay, I'm coming along. It's like, why are you coming along?
Yeah, I
Why
don't know. There's a lot. Do you remember how the Falcon is impounded? I was like, oh, is that supposed to tell us something? I'm just like, no, it doesn't really get developed. I thought that maybe they were going to try and imply that Lando is not actually his vehicle, that he's stealing it and telling them that it's his.
Well,
But it doesn't really amount to anything other
there's
than
no explanation why, as opposed to they had to break into the freaking whatever that area of space was where all the ships were
yeah.
to get to his ship, and then the ship was impounded, and you're like, okay, maybe someone's holding it for him.
I thought the twist was going to be that it was never his ship to begin with, but
That would have been great. Yeah.
that wasn't it. It was just nothing. This is why I was like, okay, a bit weird.
The one thing I did enjoy, and people were still freaking out about, was L3. And there's this scene where Akira and L3 are talking about love, and I thought that's such a cute scene. And you never really hear about human relationships between droids and normal and flesh and blood people, but it could imply sex. It could not imply. It was just love. They were talking about love, and she said it works. And you're like, okay, you could take that multiple ways, but it's interpretive. So I didn't see anything wrong with that. And I know other people would, just because it's like, oh, droids and humans, what the hell? So
I mean, I think it's tied more to the fact that it's Lando as opposed to just random person, because people are like, stop adding things to the characters that we don't want, sort of thing.
maybe.
But like, I genuinely, when I saw that scene, I thought it was strange. I was like, what? Because as you just admitted, it's like you could easily run with that and assume that she's actually talking about sex. You'd be like, okay, are we talking like fembot style stuff here, which is a bit. You don't like. My position is like I don't really want to think about Lando doing that in his free time. Like I don't need to. Why is that? Why are we doing this? I find myself asking that throughout the whole film. Like why is
this happening? Why are all these scenes happening? Like especially the scenes with they're going to steal that unrefined fuel, and they just kill everyone. They just butcher everything. Oh my god, was this planned out? Did you guys like have a heist scenario? Because when you think of a heist scenario with a specific team with specific skill sets, you're going to do certain things in certain orders and certain ways. It's like, oh, we got split up. Okay, shoot everyone. Like, whoa, wait, that was the plan.
And yeah, and not to mention how pivotal Chewie and Han are to the plan, and yet like 5 minutes ago they were kind of like, nah, we don't need them. It's like you needed not just them, you needed more than them
Yeah,
to be honest.
and Chewie just goes off and does his own thing. Han does all the work, and then all of a sudden they're dragging the stuff out to the Millennium Falcon, and oh, get these people off the guns because there's just bigger guns on the ledges or whatever. And then Kira finally comes out with grenades. It's like, where were you 10 minutes ago? Couldn't you have done that in the first place? And then we could have just left instantly. Nope, you have to wait until there's a big shootout, and L3 gets blown up, and then Lando gets shot, and then we got to drag his ass out through. It's like, oh my god. There's all these bizarre tactical things that they didn't plan out. It's like, well, you're a heist crew. You're supposed to plan these things out.
And
That's the
how they were
point.
like, oh man, hope Memphis Nest doesn't show up. And they'd be like, yeah, I hope so too. And then they do, and it's like, damn, they did. It's so like, well, I guess, fuck it then. Like, we just don't, yeah. And the idea that it's like, who is Memphis Nest? Why are these so important? Why are they after you? And it's like, oh, it turns out they are the rebels. They're going to establish the rebellion. You're like, oh god.
Well, that's Scarlet Crime Boss guy. It's like, I'm gonna have to kill you because those other guys know that if I send someone after the field, they'll know it's me. It's like, well, we won't say we're working with you. We won't tell anyone. It's like, duh. Oh, okay, then go do that plan then. It's like, what? Are you stupid? Like, what? How hard is that to figure out? Like, just let them do it. It's like, yeah, who are these guys? I don't know. They're gonna steal stuff. Okay, then shoot them. Like, who cares? Who cares who they're working with?
What do you think of Voss, Dryden Voss, I think his name was?
Yeah, that was that was such a dumb. I don't. Oh, such a cutboard cutout of a villain. You're like, why are you?
A lot of people liked him. I thought he was a cartoon. I was like,
He was
he's
a
kind of
joke.
funny.
And that this again, the scene where he's fighting with Han. He basically has 4 knives or 2 daggers, whatever you call those things.
Mm-hmm.
And he could have cut Han 18 different ways when he first missed him, or he's fighting with, and he has a blaster, and he's like what the hell is that? It's just so ridiculous. And I don't know if he's the most ineffectual villain or he just was so pompous and stylish that he didn't care about winning. He didn't care about doing anything. And then the double and then the triple cross was like, what was going on there?
Do you remember when he does that move where he has like, he's got Han's hand in both of his hands. He does like some kind of twirly thing and he knocks his gun out of his hand. And I was just sitting there like, why didn't you just stab him? Why?
Every second where they were fighting, it's like, why didn't you just force your arms against his chest and just move your arms around, and you would have cut him in any direction. And the scene where he threw his dagger and Han just luckily ducked out of the way to grab his gun. I was like, okay, I can forgive that because again, Han is somehow lucky. He wasn't paying attention. This was a fluke. Great. But every other scene before and after that, it's like, no, this guy should be cutting you up into pieces. No question. And I did not like that whole fight. I don't know why they had that fight scene. It was just silly. There was if there was like some sort of, like even before the fight scene where Kira kind of cuts him but doesn't stab him all the way. It's like, you had the upper hand. You just drive this thing into his chest. He's done. It's like, nope, I'm just going to sort of slowly stab him and he blocks. And it's like, what were you trying to do here, Kira? It's like, what? The whole fight scene in that was just stupid. It was just bad. And that's already at the point where I was like, okay, this is a joke now. This whole...
Did you follow all the double and triple crosses?
No. I knew for just by the music alone, because there was that sort of female choir music whenever the Marauders came out. I was like, why are they having this female choir sort of fight music? Unless behind the mask it's a woman. I didn't know what that meant, but I knew there was some feminine aspect. So then when she takes her mask off later in this movie, she's like, okay, it's a chick. Why is she a chick? Okay, the Empire is destroying people and they're the remnants of whatever's going on and they're trying to get back at everything. Fine, great, cool. But the fact that Han planned ahead and it was like, okay, so you planned on taking all the fuel. You planned on your old boss cutting off with your upper boss and him just taking off with Chewie, and you planned on Kreia or whatever her name, Kira, also helping you out, even though you weren't sure of her allegiance. It was just like, what? Did you really plan this all out? And I didn't like that. I did not like that at all, because that's not Han. Han does one plan, and it's for him. It's not one plan, I'm going to help everyone. That happens.
Yeah, definitely. You know how they open up his little fuel thing and they find his gun is hidden inside it?
Right.
I always found that hilarious because when they enter the room, it's just Voss. And so if in the elevator they'd pulled that gun out and shot him the moment they got in the room, Voss's plan would have been destroyed.
Yeah, just shoot Voss. Or Kira, just go behind him and put that dagger through his neck or whatever. It's like, you couldn't have done that.
No, instead she has to convince Han that maybe she's going to betray him, but they're not. And it's like, okay.
And then, of course, there was the triple cross by Kira. Why did she do that? There's no explanation. Like, she's free.
I think we're supposed to find out in the sequel, which is never going to happen.
It's like, you're free. You got everything you want. You're free of this guy that, whatever he did to you. And now you have to talk to Darth Maul because and there's like nothing came out of that aside from the windows came, like the bars on the windows came down. It's like, why is this happening? Is it security that you have to have a holographic conversation with this dude? Why is it a big secret that the Sith are involved? Like, what is?
Well, you could tell they were banking on the Darth Maul love.
That was so stupid.
I'm so surprised because if you remember, a lot of people saw The Force Awakens as an attempt to avoid the prequels at all costs.
Oh, really?
Like, do you remember the first line where the old dude says, "This will begin to make things right," and everyone interprets that as sorry about the prequels, guys.
Little meta message there. Okay.
But so much for that, I guess. They're actually banking on prequel love now.
Compared to what we're getting, it probably wouldn't hurt, but geez, like this did right.
I just thought it was funny. Do you remember he activates his lightsaber for no reason?
Yeah.
He just turns it on, turns it back off.
We're going to see each other again. You're like, what?
Oh my god. I was laughing at the cinema. I'm not joking. I was just like, I was expecting anything as well. My brain even thought maybe Darth Vader is going to pop up on screen. I was just like, fuck it, why not?
I thought maybe if they're going to do a hologram thing, he's going to do one of those forced chokeholds, because why else would you have a holographic security? Like, because when she puts the ring into the whatever dial thing to have the communication, is that like a very private channel? Because again, all the windows start getting all the bars on them. Maybe there's a secured link going. It's this big event. And it's like, this has nothing to do with anything. He's just there to tell her off, and that's it. And then we cut to a scene with Woody. He gets shot, and I couldn't hear a word he said. And then Han says, "I know," and I'm like, "What? What was that? what was going on there?" Like, why did this scene happen? What was he trying to say? I actually had to go online and find out. And what he said was something about some musical device he was never going to learn to play anyway. And Han says, "I know." And I'm like, how would you know that, buddy? You like, what was the history?
It's a nice thing to say, damn it.
Was it? I don't know.
I have no idea.
I was just sitting there going, what was this scene about? Aside from he knew he was about to shoot him and he shot him first. That was it. Like, And then they have to do the rest of the scene, because at that point I thought the movie was over. I was like, nope, we got to go back to Londo, because Londo just took off. Like, the hell with you?
Yeah, that was weird. Like, it was like, fuck, we'll deal with that later.
Yeah, so they go back to where I don't even know where they found Londo, or where they knew how to find him. And
just like distant planet. It was like, okay.
Did he chase them down for some reason? Who knows? And they hug or whatever, and he sees the trick card, or the cards up his wrist, and then Londo's about to grab the trick card. He doesn't realize that it's gone, and then Han pulls it out. It's like, Han, you just showed people you're cheating. Like, you don't want to do that during the game. It's like, you don't, like, I don't play a game with other people and say, hey, only if you had this card you would have won. It's like, Han, you just showed everyone you're cheating. and everyone, gets applauds and whatever. He wins the Millennium Falcon. Like, oh, please stop.
And apparently Lando just cannot win without cheating, but I suppose he had the cheat card then as well, Han did, so.
It just well, we didn't even talk about the ridiculous space monster that was gigantic and near a black hole or whatever, and it was like,
I
oh,
loved Cthulhu. It was
it,
interesting to see.
it
I
was
mean,
bizarre as hell. What
it
is
was so
going
funny because when I was at the cinema, I was just like, what the hell are we doing now? What is this?
Oh, good Lord. I was like, okay, he's flying through a big dust cloud or whatever the Kessel Run. I liked how they explained away parsecs because to fly with only within or less than 20 is suicide. And he decided to go less than that. And he just made it like whatever that was, it happened to be 12. Like that's cool. I thought that was a nice, it's very rare to find a future installment of a series of any kind to lampshade the mistakes of a
I
previous
mean, a
one.
lot of people see Rogue One that way, with the explanation of why the Death Star has such a unique flaw. But I always thought it was fine anyway, because of how big machines can often have a really big weak spot you can go for. But I mean, Rogue One has now said that there's a reason that it exists because some guy was actually building it into it on by design.
Well,
Um,
I haven't seen that, so I can't say whether that was an improper or good use of correcting. Like that's the whole movie, right? That's the whole
yeah,
thing.
that's what people say is that the Rogue One exists for one to explain one plot hole.
Whereas in this case, this is just using a unit of measurement as opposed to a unit of time, and they created an entire trade path or whatever you want to call that area of space, like a big gas cloud or whatever you call it. Like that's interesting. Okay, so this is a whole thing that people do to ship stuff, and as well as the concept of a train. Like I remember Red Letter Media made a joke about how why are they using trains to ship stuff? Like what's the point if you have these flying spaceships? And I was thinking, well, in order to get spaceships, you need fuel. In order to get fuel, you need to refine it. You have to transport it to a refinery and all this other junk. So they're going to use the lowest tech available at the cheapest cost, even though it's a train.
It is, but the thing is, we get told like that train in total is carrying a hell of a lot of money. Let's just say
Yes.
that.
An entire fleet, like an entire Empire fleet worth of fuel, essentially. So
Yeah,
it's like, why didn't they just get one ship to do it? Yeah, that makes a
you
lot
should
more
probably have a better defenses on it, considering how important it is what I would say.
sense. Well, okay, so for about 2 hours, I was entertained, and then I just sort of kept nodding my head off, like, oh no. And the most important thing was the pacing. The pacing kept up. It was a bit to a detriment near the end because with the double and triple cross and the planning that Han had, and then the dice keep making an appearance, I thought that was kind of silly. But if you don't think of it too much, honestly, I know you have to turn your brain off half the time for these Star Wars movies nowadays to appreciate them. But I actually enjoyed the first half, as strange and poorly lit as it was, and then everything just sort of slowly kept breaking down and falling apart into silliness. So
I was disappointed with Beckett because he makes some strange choices towards the end of the film, where he's like, "I'm gonna take the Wookiee, and we're gonna walk to a ship with everything, and I'm just gonna consistently betray everybody." When he could have just shot Voss and been like, "Well, I was on your side the whole time, guys." That's the kind of thing I was expecting, not just,
yeah,
"All
he
right, how
wanted
do
he
I?"
wanted a team. He wanted a group of people that he can
And
trust.
And I was just like, man, if you're gonna, you can't just leave Han Solo alive after kidnapping Chewie and taking the fuel, dude. You're gonna have to kill him because he's gonna come and kill you.
Yeah, he was sort of betting on what everyone in the room killing each other, and then he just
I,
escapes.
I think so. Yeah, like all three of them would hate him if any one of them survives. So he's just
Yeah,
hoping they'll die.
yeah, it was like, okay, good luck, I guess. Not exactly the cleanest way to end a relationship by having enemies on all sides, but okay.
It's
Yeah,
so
it's
easy to just get the upper hand on Voss. He was so terrible.
he came across at first as this sort of suave manipulator who doesn't take shit from anyone.
Hmm.
Then he takes shit, and then he's, I'm going to have to kill you, and then, oh, you have a solution? Oh, no, that's not going to work. I'm going to have to kill you. It's like, no, we won't say that we're working with you. They won't know. Oh, okay, sure, go ahead then. Oh, by the way, Kira, go with them because you're my number one gal. And like, okay. What?
Unless you betray me. It's like, what?
There's no forethought, no planning. It's just it was he was just a joke. I don't know why they. I would have liked to have seen a little bit more connections with him throughout the gal, like who he's in command of. Yeah, he has agents here or there. They're spying on him. I really like the fact that there was a sub enemy, or at least the Marauders that were trying to do the same thing as. And then we get a reason why. It's like, oh, we want to.
I don't know. I thought it was forced that they are the the Republic, or the rebels. Sorry, they are the proto rebels. Apparently,
Something
it's like
I wouldn't say they were the basis of the rebels. They sounded like they were part or another faction that wanted to become the rebels.
they were like say that we're starting I could have sworn they said we're
Yeah,
starting a
I
rebellion. It's like,
I didn't see it that far. I just saw it as a ragtag bunch of guys that wanted to just break free and get revenge and whatever. That was it. That's all I saw it as. I didn't see it as like, oh, these are the basis of the rebels. Like, no, of course not. You're a sub boss. You're no one. And there's all these homeless people or whatever around you. Like that was it. Um, if it were, then that's pretty weak. They'd have to be an entire comic book series just explaining that crap. See where that even went after. Well, whenever the rebellion was. No, that doesn't even make sense because then we have all the other stories that have rebels coming up before them. There has to be other, I mean, books and comics that show that they wouldn't just have some random dude with a mask or chick with a mask who wants to steal fuel.
yeah, Disney would never ruin Star Wars.
That's the weakest setup for we want fuel, therefore we're going to take on a Star Empire. It's like, no, you're not. How does that work? We are the Republic. No.
Well, I mean, the fuel thing is as a result of, what was it? Something like the Empire would refine the fuel at their planet, but not give them any money for it, and they became poverty stricken, and then the Empire just left. Was that their motivation?
I'm surprised they managed to follow Han and Woody around all this time. It's like, how did you know where they were going? Oh, the tracking. Yeah,
They
but
did put
then
a tracker on them at some point. It wasn't from the beginning though.
yes, they must have known about the first train robbery thing,
Hmm.
and then they put it on. It's like, okay, it. I want it to be more of a heist. I think if it was part of more of a heist story, like a proper heist story, I would have respected it a lot more. Han would have been a lot more interesting because he would have had a role to play as like the stick man. He's the guy. He's the getaway car guy,
Yeah.
as opposed to risk your life in a dungeon with a bunch of droids and a bunch of slave labory people. It just blah. It's not.
What do you think about the droid revolution?
That was silly. It was kind of like ineffectual because what's the point of having these
Well, I don't get it. Are they saying that any droid without a restraining bolt is basically a human?
No, I think because they were machines that were super intelligent that they somehow had the capacity to be individuals. Like a C3PO is like a social droid, but he's not really saying, "Oh, I wish I could do this with my life." No, he's a servant. He knows exactly what he is, and that's totally fine. We get that. He's a droid. He's not a real life form.
Mm-hmm.
So when you have L337 with the personality matrix of whatever, that was, I wouldn't say it's forced. I thought it was more of a joke on the idea of the setting you were in, as opposed to someone installing some sort of weird political message. Like everyone was talking about that, and the whole love thing. I just saw that as a silly little joke. There was barely any depth to it. There was barely any impact of that. The droids themselves weren't as human as L337. So
Mm-hmm.
you could not identify with that message or that concept in the world, because in the world of Star Wars, this is the only character that I could see that had this sort of message or this sort of issue. Even as human as R2D2 was, and he's probably the most human out of all the droids, just because of his
Yeah.
behavior and plot specificness. Like he was there to serve. He was there to help. He's the like all the droids are the untold heroes, the unsung heroes of the stories. Because if Luke cannot get by a certain path, R2D2 was there to help.
I mean, you remember when like R2D2 gets shot in Return of the Jedi, and like the reaction is C-3PO like, "Oh no!" and then Han and Leia are like, "Oh damn it, our hammer is damaged," you know. And that's the kind of way I've always seen it: is that the
Yeah.
audience appreciates the droid's sentience, while the characters seem to just always treat it as their tools with quirks.
Yeah, it's like as if the idea of an artificial intelligence is not even a thing, and they see a character like L337 as just an artificial personality that has really no bearing. Like, it's not a real person, and these are sentiments that a lot of futurists of AI studies have shown. Like it's impossible we're ever going to get sentient life forms, and of course the flip side of that is, no, it's inevitable. We don't know when or how. So Star Wars just doesn't have that. That's the fate of droids in the entire and all of. I haven't read much in the expanded universe, but it's pretty much there's no other major AI that says I am independent. I want my own existence. I want to break free of my shackles or whatever. That never happens. So it's there's no political message behind that I could see at least within this movie.
Well, I mean, you must have seen like audience reactions to L3 have been controversial to say the least. A lot of people assume that she's a satire. I think that there might be that she started as a satire, and then the writers that took over kind of made her a little bit more serious.
I don't think so. I think there's not enough depth for there to be satire, let alone be serious. Because in order to have that seriousness, there has to be an element within the story, at least within someone's plot, and there wasn't. It was just Lando. So I'm pronouncing his name. Is it Lando or Lando? Lando.
Is Lando?
Lando. Okay, I'm thinking of Babylon 5. I'm sorry. Like that was the only thing between that character. It was him and L337. That's it. And her thing was just her thing. She could have been talking about ice cream. She could have been talking about party favors. It doesn't matter. And she would have been, I found my calling, and she shoots off her party favors. You're like, okay, cool, whatever, let's go, come on. It would have made no difference. So I really don't see it as a political thing. If you want to see it as satire, you could, but again, it's just everything.
What do you
else,
think of her death scene? What were we supposed to feel in that scene?
Well, she was a character, so she had a personality. So it's like, oh, we lost one of our droids, and then she stops talking. It's kind of sad, and obviously Lando is totally taking it seriously because it's his friend. So
That's interesting because I said that it was clearly going for serious. A lot of people were like, no, that scene was supposed to be funny.
it is dramatic, yeah. Yeah,
Remember the music and the way they film it? I was like, this has to be they're trying to get you to feel sad.
Yeah, no. I don't think she was there for comic relief, although kind of the stuff she was doing was kind of ridiculous because it's like, you're in this world where no one thinks the same way as you do. So it seemed awkward, but it wasn't. If it was comedic, it didn't really make me laugh, or there was no.
I did laugh. When she got shot, I laughed. But it's more to do with how insufferable I found it to be.
Oh, okay.
And
See,
again, I don't think that was the intended reaction.
No. To me, I thought when she made that talk about love with Kira, I thought that was very charming. I thought that was, hey, here is a character who's a droid who knows about human relationships in whatever capacity that a droid would know that, like the way C-3PO would understand human relations, and she's talking about love, and it's like, hey, that elevates the literature, or at least the narrative to a different level, as opposed to just talking about I'm going to serve my master, who's not my master. He's my whatever they call partner. It wasn't just this working relationship. It was something more, and she thought of it as something more. And to have that capacity is interesting, and that would have been interesting to see how that translates, but what she gets reduced to is just a database of star charts and whatever. And
She's
it's like
in the Falcon now.
she is the Falcon, or she isn't really the Falcon. She's just information. She's not a was she a navigational computer or just a database? I don't exactly remember the term they used, but it seems as if it was just information. And
Uh, yeah, I don't know. She had something already that was really useful about it, like a navigational chart. That's what Lando said. And I don't know if it was implied that they just put that into the Falcon or if they put the whole thing into the Falcon, you know?
yeah, it didn't sound like it was a CPU or a
Which,
processing thing.
have you heard about, like, there was a lot of people very upset by that. She didn't want to be, like, her character wasn't very much obsessed with not wanting to be in that situation, and that's how she ends up. And they were like, it's a horrible message, and she's been enslaved for the rest of Star Wars to be stuck on that inside the ship, no freedom, that sort of thing.
Um, no, that's ridiculous.
No,
That's
I'm not. I'm not saying it.
no. Well, the idea that this is how the ship is so good at flying or whatever is kind of silly. It's like, okay, well, you're just a star chart, or you're a really big star chart. I mean, wouldn't you go to any um, docking bay and say, hey, can I buy the star chart for this part of the solar system? It's like, sure. Okay,
Hmm.
great, thanks. I guess that would be a prize to certain shippers or certain guys who do a lot of space travels. They'd be like, oh, how big is your star chart? Where have you been? Da 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 da. I'll pay you this if I'll give you mine. Like that would have been a cool thing if that was ever a part of the culture of whatever lifestyle Han lived. But again, Han is pretty surface level when you're talking about the original trilogy and what he meant as a character. So uh, that's the problem with this movie. It didn't really do much for Han.
Hmm.
It did not expand his character. Did not explain his character. It just showed him, okay, this is where he came from. But it's like he didn't change. He
You
he
want to
was
see how he and Chewie met? You're like, okay.
They met
Hmm.
and he dragged him around and that was it. And he loved a girl and the girl took off and you're like, okay. Was he broke up about her? Nope. He went from optimistic and then somehow instead of having good feelings, he now has bad feelings about things. That's about it, as far as I can tell.
Yeah.
There's nothing else I can say that the character went through to change.
I wonder if they had bigger plans and that they really did think this would be a trilogy. I remember there was grumblings about it being a trilogy from the get-go. It's just that it's done like nobody cares, so they're dropping that now. And obviously, Darth Maul will have to be repurposed into a different film.
Well, I was hoping that they would have done an Obi-Wan story, just because I think Obi-Wan's a much more interesting character. There's actually some depth to his actions, as well as some of the things he said in the original trilogy kind of contradict what was going on in the prequels. So you want to see, was he sort of like a lying fellow in the past before he developed force powers? Did he have his own missions as a knight that made him change his mind before all this other stuff when he got a master
Yeah,
to
I always looked at Obi-Wan as someone who considers lying fine if it serves a greater purpose, sort of thing.
that would be, yeah, like he's kind of roguish in his own way, whereas Han was portrayed as just this nice guy.
Mm.
And it's like he's a smuggler. He is roguish. It's like where did that go? Where did that come from? We don't know still. He grew up on the streets. That's it. He steals things. So what? Was there something about stealing something that made him bad or made him evil? That made him this criminal? Not really. He just wanted to survive, and he wanted to meet up with his girlfriend who blew him off. And that's just a really it
And
just
then he
is.
happens to bump into it because she just happens to work for a guy. Like that's one of the most insane conveniences I've ever seen in a film. I was just like, okay, fine, that's so she got caught on Corellia and somehow managed to get out of that, get off that planet, and work for a mob boss that's to do with the Darth Maul syndicate. I was just like, sure, why
But in
not?
reality, it was because we thought it was the other Scarlet dudes, but nope, it's Darth Maul. But I don't understand that relationship, and because they didn't explain it, we're
Would
like,
you mean like how it came to be, or
well, was the relationship between the mini boss and Darth Maul, and she was in on that because she was a lieutenant, or was it because Darth Maul went to her first, or saved her, and then put her in turn. Like, it didn't make any sense. It did not make any sense. Why does Darth Maul have any hold over her? How did she know about Darth Maul? Where was that scene where, she gets saved by Blade Guy, and he has a conversation with Darth Maul, and she knows what's up and what's going on, so that she knows to use his ring to contact him and say, "Hey, things are happening. I couldn't help out." Something.
I mean, you got the whole when I just loved it when Han is like, "Let's go get Beckett." Then she's like, "Yeah, you go. I'm gonna grab some stuff. You go, okay?" And then he sees her leaving, and I was like, "Did you really expect anything else after?" She's just like, "Yeah, just totally go. I'll be right behind you."
Why did they steal the ship, this yacht? Why didn't they take? That was a pretty sweet ass. Well,
I don't know. I guess there's lots of people in it, right? I don't know.
well, yeah, but it's like, hey, I'm in charge now. Oh, we don't really care as long as we don't die. Yeah, I thought so.
Yeah. Makes you wonder what the ecosystem of the yacht is. Are they just guests or?
Yeah, it's like this tall apartment building, I guess. And there's floors, and you get to the top, and you're at the boss level, the apartment. I don't know. It just so many questions that you don't do that in these kinds of stories. You're supposed to answer questions. You're supposed to provide answers in a backstory for things what are going to happen. And then you say, oh, that makes so much sense. Why this is the way it is. I now really like the dice because they mean something, as opposed to it's a memento he just held on to.
Yeah.
Like here's a good one. Okay. I didn't actually read this story. It's by Agatha Christie. It's called The Chocolate Box. And The Chocolate Box is a mystery by Hercule Poirot. It's the one mystery he never solved. And she tells a story of him in the TV series, the BBC TV series, Poirot. She tells the story of Poirot, going back to 20 years, because he was in Belgium when he was in the 1893 or whatever it was, of this lapel pin that this girl gave him. And throughout the series, since the first episode, since, I don't know, the 8th season, whenever they filmed this scene, he had this lapel pin all throughout the series. And they explained it that when he goes back to visit this girl that he met, that he loved, she gave him this lapel pin. So all this time, and this isn't even is not in the books as far as I recall, all this time there was this lapel pin that this girl gave him that he loved, and he never married. He always thought of her, and this is his way. This really, logical giant detective who does not get emotional. He has this little pin he's been holding on to his entire life. Also, it's the one case he never solved. So there's all this meaning behind it. There's all this background history, and then he solves the case and all this other stuff that you expect from a murder mystery. So just that little sentiment thing gives meaning to a piece of jewelry that has no real value aside from the story.
That sounds better than if you remember Pirates of the Caribbean in the third one, where they say that one of the 9 pieces of 8 is Jack Sparrow's like little thing on his head, which he's had in the other films the whole time.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, it's the film everyone hates, the third one. But it just made me think of that, like giving meaning to an object, which they could have done with the dice, but they just made it confusing to me.
Yeah, all it had to be was, this is, I want you to remember me by, like, say that Han kept the dice, like when they get separated, and she throws it to him. It's like, don't forget me. And he's like screaming at her, I'll come get you. And he's always, and during the war, during that 3-year skip, he has the dice around his neck or something, and it's this memento he's never going to let go of. That would symbolize he really does care for her. He really, like, we know he's going to say, I'm
fine with that. I still just, I think that I just don't get how Luke should have chosen someone else to give to Leia at that point, because it's too confusing.
Back to TLJ, right?
Well, it just makes me think about it. It's like, why are we this is a different relationship, because the Kira-Han relationship might actually be really good for all we know. But it's awkward because, Han and Leia, that's the one we know. And it's like, well, no, really, they got divorced, didn't they? It's like, oh, right, yeah. Well, but then also the dice are given to Leia. It's so confusing. It's just like, why are all these things happening?
No. We all know that The Last Jedi will forever be cemented as this ridiculous pile of questions and bad scenarios and bad
There
setup.
are plenty of writers who consider it a masterpiece.
Writers?
Oh
Okay.
yes, I mean they self-proclaimed, but still.
Well, even Stephen King, as brilliant as he is, has a lot of strange views on the world. So, um,
Yeah. Um, but I mean, it's interesting when you explore like the opposing sort of angles where they're literally confused at people like us. They're like, "How could you think the Last Jedi even has flaws?" Just like, uh,
wow. I mean, if we look at the flaws of this movie and we treat them as just surface level things like, oh, this doesn't really add or take away from things, it's like, no. Some of them do. Some of them really impact the whole planning of the whole last 20 minutes and why things happen the way they did. It's a flow in what they were expecting to happen and what did happen, as opposed to, oh, look, there's Cure after all these years, or oh, look, there's the ship taking off. Let's just wave our arms around and hope we'll get on there. Like all these little contrivances that you think, they could have gone either way. And you have to provide proper explanation for these things to happen, or lampshade the the possibility of these things happening the way they did, or else it just falls apart.
hmm.
So the sentimentality of the dice, yeah, if there had to have been something more to it in The Last Jedi. And
I think that the Last Jedi was told to make something of the dice, and the Han Solo movie will take care of the history. Don't worry about it. And then they gave it a history that doesn't match what happens in the Last Jedi.
if it was it had to have been a more generic message, like say the dice represented hope, and it's like,
Yeah, like it goes between a lot of characters
yeah,
or
and it's this
something.
thing that someone had, and every time it moves to someone, they have to tell them a story. And then when
Yeah,
they tell
like
us,
his dad gave them to him, and he says like his dad always said that no matter how good you are in life, it's always going to come down to luck or some kind of typical message like that. And then Han could change it when he gives it to someone else.
yeah, and it's a message you do whenever you give it to someone, so that
Yeah,
during that entire time, Leia must have been told that story. So it's because they were married, they must have known everything about each other.
yeah. You
So
just need to change the message enough so it matches the scene in Last Jedi somehow. Like, never give up hope. You know, something will always roll in your favor. Something really crap like that.
something that Han would say, right? Something that would be completely characterized by Han's attitude and personality, so that when he gives it to her, she knows what it means on another level, because again, she knows him way more than anyone else. It was his wife.
Instead of Luke being like, "Hey, remember Kira?" and Leia's like, "Dude, what the hell?"
That girl that he was looking for his entire life, he never shut up about and drove you up the wall.
She's like, you couldn't even bring back like just the seat cushion. That would have made more sense than the dice. He's like, oh well. Yeah, apparently Kylo knew what the dice were, sort of as well.
I guess he saw
Yeah,
them, and then they disappeared in his hand because he's evil, or Luke
because
died.
he's evil.
I don't know. Why did they disappear? I don't know.
They're on a timed release. I don't know.
The Force has this little bomb, little timer guy.
It's so weird that they don't disappear the same time as Luke, but again, it's just like, oh fuck it, whatever. At this point, that's the end of the film. They've already broken everything at that point.
Oh boy. Yeah, so I guess we could say in terms of continuity for how you feel about The Last Jedi, I guess it gets worse and worse as you keep watching it. Same with
I'm
Solo.
convinced there'll be more discussion about The Last Jedi half a year after Episode 9's released than any other episode. The Last Jedi was special, man. Like,
It can only
it's
go up from here, man. You're gonna have to watch the last episode and go, "Yep, it just wasn't The Last Jedi." It just
there's a good chance the opening to my video on the Episode 9 will be like, it was better than The Last Jedi, guys. Yes. And that's the thing, I'm convinced I don't think you can actually do worse, because even if you make like the room of the Star Wars movies, it doesn't have anything to ruin, you know? It was just like, yeah, that was bad.
it's going to be somewhere between Solo and A New Hope. No. That's too big. That's too big a distance. It's a different. It's going to be a somewhere between Rogue One and Solo. It's going to be this weird
Hmm.
mashup between mediocre side stories that try and tie in all the loose ends for the sake of tying up loose ends, which is what you do in the end of a trilogy, I guess.
I mean, this is going to be the. I mean, I don't know if it's a thing, but didn't JJ want to have 2 movies at the end of this trilogy now, not 1?
Well, that's JJ. I don't know what else they're going
Well,
to do.
I just find it amusing because it's just like, yeah, that makes sense. If anybody was taking up from what Ryan left them, you have no story to tell. So, like the end of Empire, you've got so many loose ends, and it's so interesting to see how they're going to tie it all up. But with the end of The Last Jedi, you're like, well, they're all on the Falcon, and the First Order exists. Okay.
All 12 of them. Yeah.
And you know what it is? People are asking, like, taking bets on what the time skip will be. I'm thinking it's at least 5 years, because they need to reset resources. They need to get everybody back in armies,
Well, all you need is first the ground units are going to be Rey, and then that's your ground unit, and then you have I don't know a copy of Millennium Falcon because we want to have like 2 of them because they're indestructible. So you just have 2 Millennium Falcons. They'll just take on the next version of the like God. How many more iterations of Death Stars or super big Star Destroyers or whatever they're going to do? Like
that's getting really boring now, isn't it?
it's like death.
We were saying that back in Force Awakens, but look at us now.
I don't know. It's a little
the supremacy, the most extraordinarily large ship in history.
No, the
also
Dreadnought. It was the Dreadnought. It was like, whoa, look at the size of this thing. It's like, oh, they got to top.
And they said that there's more than one of those, by the way. So it's like, okay,
Jesus.
So we'll see more Dreadnoughts. Hopefully, that'll be great. That'll fix Star Wars. More Dreadnoughts.
I'd like to see a really a Mark II bomber version of the Rebel bombers, but flown by the Empire. It's like, oh, ours are faster. Ours are not made of paper. They're made of wood or whatever. They take 2 shots instead of 1. It's like, ooh, they're gonna stop us. Like, okay. Whatever.
Yeah, well, as you should remember, it's about the emotional resonance. It's not about intellectual consistency.
I thought it was about family.
And you know what? It's about family. That's what it is. That's such a. I love that line. It's just such a. You have a question mark. You're just like, yeah, okay, sure.
I think at that point she's like, I'm getting paid. I'm old. I don't give a crap. Yeah, it's about family. Yeah, okay. Okay, I think we've killed enough time talking about this wonderful movie that we just watched. Do I recommend this movie? I think watching it maybe next year on TV during Christmas would be a fun thing to do. Maybe Boxing Day.
Get to jump into the Star Wars universe for a bit at Hollywood level, which is always nice.
Do one of those, not a matinee. What do they do? All day Star Wars on one channels, the marathons. I would watch it. Yeah, why not?
Maybe watch it with somebody so you can at least talk about stuff.
Oh yeah, definitely don't watch a whole marathon by yourself. That'd be depressing. Oh my god.
Mm-hmm. You just progressively see it all get destroyed. You're like, yay.
There goes my childhood. I go, let's not watch that again. All right, let's go through the chat, and I do have some super chats here, so let's go off away from the top and see what people have been said. Any questions to Mauler? Of course, I'm going to see if I can find them as well. They're making a Cassian Andor TV show. Are you kidding me? Like, what the hell is a Cassian Andor TV show?
It's so funny. I saw a thread on it on Reddit, and it's just so positive. Every comment is about how amazing the show can be, about all the ways they can explore it, how they really love that character, how they love K2SO, and he should come back. And I was just like, man, the cycle continues, Like,
isn't that a guy from Rogue One?
Yeah, he's Diego Luna plays him. Again, I realize now you haven't actually seen Rogue One, so you can't really give your take on whether or not it's a good idea. For me, I'm just like, I feel like we're going to experience the whole, you know what happened with Marvel's TV shows lately where they just canceled a bunch of them. Because just like, fuck it, let's cut our losses. As far as I know, we've got a couple of shows coming now. And same for Marvel too. We got the Loki show that's been confirmed.
The Loki show.
I know.
Loki show, that's hilarious.
And people are like, yeah, but Loki's awesome. And I'm like, yeah.
Is that all Netflix, or is that like actual broadcasting TV?
I would imagine Netflix, to be honest, but I don't know. I really don't. Oh, it could be. Is it Disney's own streaming service? I think that's the idea.
Okay, because we still have like Star Trek on cable TV with Discovery. and they're rebooting itself again. So it's, at least from what I've been told, they're changing the characters around, they're changing the Klingons, they're changing the storyline. It's like, wow, they're going back to the original Star Trek in some capacity, but how they do that with the same cinematographer or the same director, I have no idea, because everyone knows when you do different shots and you go for that, because we look at, Star Trek, Star Trek Restoration, DS9, those were designed for profile dramatic zoom-ins and politics. They were all about conversation, whereas you look at Discovery, the shots are wide angle, they're following shots, there's action going on, all the sets are wide. It's a totally different feeling. Now, I'm no expert, I'm not a film student, so I can't really say what that means, but it's just the vibe itself, the tone is so different, and all they're doing is changing. They're revamping the Klingons, they're going back to the old uniforms, they're playing around with the mirror universe more. I don't really care, because I didn't care for the second or third episode of the bloody show. But the fact that they're doing that means they're in damage control, and they're trying to appeal to whoever's left of the fan base. Because even I doubt even Enterprise was doing that bad, and Enterprise was on for like 5 seasons. So they're in their second season now, and I'm surprised they're still kicking. So good on them. They must be doing something right, but they're dying. So that's standard cable. That's I think it's filmed in Toronto, actually. So who knows what other science fiction is out there that we can really look forward to?
Let's just make some new ones. Let's give up.
That's not owned by Disney. I can't think of any. Okay, anyway, more questions. It's like they retroactively wanted to make the dice more significant than they really were. Yeah, but they failed. They didn't know how to do it.
Yeah, and I think it would have been something they could do, but they just did not the right thing.
You can list like a dozen different reasons why something is sentimental, and randomly pick one, and say, "Oh, it's a thing to represent vengeance, or luck, or love, or longing, or hope, or whatever." Then we'll create some. Yeah, pick one, and then we'll create some characters. We'll create a scenario. We'll make it dramatic. We'll make it a quick flashback. Done. 20 seconds.
But no, it represents the connection to his ex-girlfriend.
Oh, sad. Next Star Wars film starring Adam Sandler as the lead and directed by Tommy Wiseau. Oh, okay.
I'd watch it.
I would totally watch that. And The Rock. Okay. Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Gotta throw The Rock in there. Kylo, I did not hit her. I did not. Oh, hi, Poe. That's good. Oh, boy. Didn't Obi-Wan say droids were not fully sentient in A&H? I don't know. A New Hope. I don't know. Did he say that?
The thing is, they do imply, especially with the prequels, that Obi-Wan has a thing with droids where he just doesn't give a shit about them. Okay. If you remember, Anakin is like, "Hey, no loose wire jokes," and he's like, "I didn't say anything." And then he says, Anakin's like, "He's trying," like as if Obi-Wan's a dick to droids.
So it's always this thing in the way. He hates technology.
I think it's his like R4 droid gets killed. He's literally just like, "Oh, blast." Like, he's always like, it's just a tool, but Anakin definitely connects to R2-D2 like he's an actual friend.
Well, Luke was always nice to droids, yeah. But he saw them as tools. He didn't see them as, like...
Oh, yeah, Luke saw them as tools. Anakin, I would hazard a guess in saying that he actually really liked R2-D2 beyond being a tool, but it was never... This is what I mean, it was never overt, and I preferred it that way.
Well, that's because he was a kid, and he was a genius, and he just had no friends, I guess, and he just wanted to have someone to talk to.
Yeah, sure. I'm happy to believe that. I didn't need a scene where he's like, R2, you're a better friend to me than many, and I'd just be like, stop, move on. I like R2-D2 as the unappreciated hero of the Star Wars saga.
Oh, he's great. He's one of my favorite characters, actually, out of Star Wars. I think he's iconic in that regard. Are details like fuel too specific for Star Wars?
Well, the problem is that they never cared before, but now we do, and it's like, oh,
fuel is now a thing. Fuel was a thing in Last Jedi. Now fuel is a big thing. Fuel is a huge thing in Solo. So,
and this is the thing: people are like, "Oh, you think they don't run on fuel?" It's like, no, it's not that. I get that, but they've never cared about it. So now we kind of have these questions of like, were they just fine for fuel at all points in every other film? Like,
Yeah, and then they gave him more detail how they were to inject the fuel into the fusion reactor as opposed to the other thing that Orlando was talking about. He's like, if you do that, it'll blow up the ship. If you do that, it'll boom, you get a big burst of energy. Like, oh, okay. So so you're fusing fuel in the fusion reactor, I guess. I don't know. I'm curious. It's a little techno babble, but it's something to latch onto and figure out what you're talking about. Let's see what else we got here. Star Wars Fury Hyperlane? What? Not sure what they meant by that. Mechanical social justice. Yes. Mauler is heartless. No, he's not. He's
just
not
a little bit.
Just a little bit. He's part droid. That's why he's so critical of his organic overlords.
They misrepresented my people.
Exactly. He's feeling that there's a cultural appropriation with Star Wars. So they showcase droids. What else we got here? 4OK versus Star Wars isn't really fair. Yeah, I don't think that's fair at all. Star Wars Troopers book versus 40K makes more sense. I don't know what you guys are talking about, but you got some fans cheering your name. Okay. And someone's telling me there are in fact sentient droids or AI in the EU. My apologies. Again, I don't know it too well. I guess there are.
Mm-hmm. I wouldn't know.
I would like to know. I'm always curious what all the writers over the years have done with droids, or at least with AI. I know there's all kinds of weird stuff in the games, like Old Republic. Like I'm sure there's all kinds of storylines with AI running amok. But whether Disney actually cares about that, I don't know. Mentor. Okay, it's called Mentor. I'll check that out. I'll read that later. Thank you very much there, Bertman Gaming. And I think, there's another question. Thoughts on Disney confirming a Rogue One prequel TV series other than the prequel series nobody wanted, the prequel movie nobody wanted? I don't know. I haven't seen the film, but from what I understand, it's the same capacity that Solo is, not part of the main trilogy, still within the same universe, and it's a bunch of side characters that probably cannot hold their own in its own series. And let's also remember that most of them died, if not all of them. So a prequel to a prequel, that's kind of weird. I don't think that would work. You'd have to really reach in, unless you go like with Knights of the Old Republic, you go like way further back. You go like thousands and thousands of years in the past, where you tell the story of ancient Sith and ancient Jedi. Then you'd be cool. Then you'd be okay. But then you're talking about KOTOR, and just tell KOTOR. Like, there's so many people. Like, just use KOTOR. Just put it up there. Make a series, make a video, make a movie. Just use it. And Disney hasn't touched it. Da-da-da. The Orville, The Expanse, and the Orville. Oh, things to watch. Yeah, I know what I like The Expanse, actually. I do enjoy watching that. Elias Tefexis, the guy who does the voice acting for Deus Ex, and he does his own stunts, or he does the own motion capture, so he's pretty cool. Fun to talk to on Twitter. He's a Habs fan, so always a mortal enemy of us Torontonians, but that's okay. The TFA critique is getting postponed again. Oh, no. Give the man a chance. This is a big, big endeavor. He's not just going to give you a 20-minute video. He's going to go all out. And that's just the one video he's going to make, let alone his ramblings.
We're talking about 6 movies, and not short movies either.
I remember when you did the, after you finished the TLJ, you did those 3 other videos. And I was like, those are way better, I thought, than the actual original TLJ video did. I thought, because you went into so much detail.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I like to do. Historically, I put at the end of the TLJ rant that this is some of my worst work, and a lot of people were like, why are you saying that? This video was awesome. And I was like, because it's my worst work. Look at the rest of my channel. I spend way longer when I talk about stories.
especially when you do Dark Souls. That's probably, I would say that's probably your best. Dark
I
Souls is
think the
probably,
DS2 stuff is my best, but I think this new series is going to be the best once it comes out. This one's taken me the longest I've ever worked on a series.
wow. Have I ever heard of World Class Bullshitter? Yes, I have. It's been a few months since I've seen his videos. Again, he's mostly a Star Wars channel. There's about 8 or 9 of these guys on YouTube.
Hmm.
They just do Star Wars, and I'm not. I mean, that's your fandom. That's cool, but I don't keep track. I don't really. I mean, that's not my bag. I like movies and media in general. That's why when I
Yeah,
talk,
got a lot
yep,
of passions. It's not just Star Wars.
yeah, when I criticize movies or stuff, I do it from a very generic standpoint of storytelling as opposed to medium, and that's
Yeah, I
one of
feel like
my
that's where we both sort of we link up a little bit on that.
right.
I've never liked the whole, but it's Star Wars, so it's allowed to have plot holes where every other film isn't. It's like, what?
Mm, that's really weak. Oh, when you look at things you really enjoy, and then you have the same critical eye to things that you kind of like, but they actually work better. You're like, oh, okay, I should actually appreciate this more
Hmm.
because it was composed better, and then you can appreciate a romance story more, or you can appreciate a comedy more. So it's whenever you apply that level of detail to anything you're critiquing, you now have a wider breadth of understanding, and I think that's why people enjoy these things. Like I'm going to release a video, I think hopefully next tomorrow, um, and I try to look at things more generically. I try to say, okay, I'm not a Patrick who can just be a film genius and know everything about everything about film. I
So what I
say,
noticed when I looked back on one of the EFAPs we did, I can't remember if it was one where you were in, but it was just, we were covering Patrick, and so I wouldn't be you, actually did Movie Bob with you, but
right.
he has like all of his film literature just in the frame,
Oh,
like it's piled up on little piles, and I just looked at it, I was like, man, he did that on purpose just to be like, hey, look, I read all this, like, oh, Patrick, the gift that keeps on giving.
can't you see how smart I am? Look at my library. I'm in a library of my own making. It's like great.
Yeah, man. And I do think he has interesting things to say on certain topics when he sticks more to the technical side of movie making. He knows a lot about, let's just say, the history of why cameras would have gone from one thing to the next, or I'm talking about really technical stuff. But whenever I hear him talk about stories, I'm always like, oh, you really just seem to come from it just from the start with, did I like it? Then it's good.
I wish I had more knowledge on individual media, so like movies or radio or why something would work because it's purely sound or purely visual. When you start getting the mixed media like video games and movies especially, you really have to know what you're talking about. So when he says this is what movies are, I'm like, really? That's all they are? It's just an emotional reaction? I
Hmm.
have really strong criticisms just to that understanding because we understand how music affects people, not 100%, but we understand that this is going to be way more impactful, way quicker, and it's going to be more personal because it's something everyone hears. Like you can change your mood by listening to any kind of piece of music, and you have to understand why. Why are you doing this? Why are you going on your train ride to the downtown and listening to 2 hours of death metal or whatever? Like what's the point behind that? And to say that, well, that's the same in movies, you're like, wait a second, there's way more artistry and planning and storytelling
One of the
for
biggest things is just all those writers out there who take so much care with their work get lumped in with the rest, then who like shit out something out in a week. And I'm like, we can't let that happen. Like, what the hell is the point in anybody putting any effort in any writing anymore if you're just going to say that it's all down to an emotional reaction? It's like,
yeah.
I really don't. This is why I'd love to talk to Patrick. I should be like, why would any writer be paid any more than any other writer? I don't understand.
Yeah, it's essentially because if you look at like say Superman, what they did with him in the movies, and it's atrocious compared to what you saw with Superman 10 years ago with Smallville, which was just this ridiculous, I guess you can call it a soap opera of the
Hmm.
beginnings of Superman's life. But you watch that, it's like these writers knew what the hell they were doing. Yeah, it was corny as hell, and they had like the freak of the week or whatever, but there was drama behind it. They got the characterization of Jonathan Kent and Martha Kent just right. They got his childhood figured out, and they played the whole concept of what if a town was bombarded by meteor rocks, what would happen to it? You'd have all these, paraphernalia related to meteor rocks and all the freaks of the weeks, why that was, the phlebotinum would be the meteor rocks and all the things that could happen to it, the types of meteor rocks, liquid form, like this, all this information. And of course, they had 10 years to figure that out, as opposed to a movie where you have to be very, very tight. Your writing has to be extremely specific and time restrictive. So, and they didn't learn for that lesson. You watch the Man of Steel and you're like, this is not Jonathan Kent. This is not, I mean, they got the right actor. They just gave him the wrong lines. All these stylistic choices. People say the tone was off. I'm like, no, the tone was perfect. They just didn't get Superman right because they didn't get Jonathan Kent right. And all these other things that came from it was just like, oh dear. Now we have a bunch of Kryptonians blowing up the planet. Like, okay.
Well, at least Justice League was good.
Oh. oh. Oh boy. Good to laugh at, I guess. Yeah. Oh. Okay, another question. What would you do for another Mass Effect game or movie? What would I do? Like, how would I plan it out, or what would I analyze it, or what? Like, I don't know. It's been in the talks that Mass Effect or even the Metal Gear Solid stuff has been in the works for years and years. What would I do? I would just do a prequel. Tell the First Contact War. Tell what happened to the Protheans. Tell the prequel of Shepard. That'd be great. Just give some backstory. Give a face. Get some good actors in there, and go to Netflix. I think Netflix is churning out some good stuff. They're not all winners, but I'd say 70 to 80% of it is good. It's good TV. And you can do that with just about any sci-fi story or reboot. I think that would work. I think that's everything. Any other questions? I don't think Mauler will like KOTOR 2. Sure he would. Love KOTOR.
I'm pretty sure I will. I just got to get around to playing them, both of them.
KOTOR 1 is the classic. I think KOTOR 2 is actually better, but you have to play the first one, obviously. And that's, once you're done your series, take a nice Christmas vacation and spend a month and take your time. All right, guys, are there any other questions for myself or Mauler? Please go ahead. If not, thank you very much for your time and patience. This has been a fun little stream of pretty much the same topic we streamed about last time, but now with me actually having some understanding of what the heck I watched. And thank you for your time, Mauler. We always appreciate it. And
thank you for having me on. It's been wonderful.
Yes, we hope to get your dental problem resolved.
Yes.
You can talk and sleep in peace, and hopefully not, well, obviously you should care about your health more than your video work. But if you're saying this is going to be as amazing as it is, take your time. Take your time.
Gosh, the expectations are high now, aren't they? With how long I've taken.
Well, for me, it's been about 4 weeks since I've released something. So I'm like, I should get off my ass and do this video. So
just gotta find someone for you to respond to.
Please help me. All right, guys. Thank you very much for your time. Have a good night.